It is that time of year again to nominate your favorite comic book YouTube channels. So I will have a link down below to the Comic Book Community Awards nomination page, and I'll have a couple categories I think I'd be a great fit for, and I would really appreciate your nominations and votes later in the year. But with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the books this week. What's up everyone, Nick from Comic Culture here. Time for Nick at Night, my weekly comic book review show. And we're gonna start over in DC with Absolute Power Task Force 7 issue number 1. This is gonna be one of those spin-off titles from the main title and all the other tie-ins. So we're gonna be seeing what's going on in here. This one's focused on Superman or Jonathan Kent. Some of his powers got absorbed or whatever into this robot that Amanda Waller is now controlling and using against all the other different heroes and whatnot. So this particular robot, in cooperation with Parasite, is taking on some of the Shazam kids. So we have like Mary Marvel and whatnot. Of course, we are in like the Rock of Eternity. We're in that hall right there, and the kids are trying to find some artifacts, right, to combat whatever evil that Amanda Waller is going to be throwing at them. They know that if they activate their powers, they're going to be back on Amanda's radar, and so they don't want to do that, right? So they're trying to figure out other ways of going about that. We do get a cool Black Adam appearance in here as well, so he's taking on this Last Son robot head on, and so that was kind of cool. There were some interesting things happening in there, but I don't know, the art was a little bit weak in this issue, to be honest, and like the story, I'm not really a big Shazam guy anyways. I like Black Adam well enough, but like there wasn't enough meat on the bone in this issue, to be honest, for it to be spectacular. And you know, like another thing is these kinds of issues, they're just going to give you a little snippet of what's happening in different pockets throughout this whole DC universe in relation to the overall event. So if you're into that kind of stuff, you might like it. I didn't like it too much, but let me know if you guys read it down below. All right, next up is Action Comics number 1067. We have Simone and Barrows on this one. New creative team. We are out of the Brainiac universe right now. We finished that story arc, and now we're getting like a slice of life thing from Superman's perspective. This is something I imagine that he has to deal with on a day-to-day basis. He's doing his Clark Kent stuff right now, interviewing some local guy who's doing some really good work in the community, and all of a sudden a bunch of aliens show up and start threatening everybody. And they have to choose a champion to represent Earth to take on this alien race's big giant champion, right? And there's super high stakes. We're going to take over the planet or we'll leave you alone kinds of stuff inside of here. Lots of cool action. The art works from most of the issue, I think. There's lots of action in here. Some of the faces and some of the panels are a little bit wonky, but I think overall there's some really cool stuff happening in here. There's high stakes, but like it's always a little bit jarring coming from one arc into the next, especially with a new creative team and a completely new story direction. So there is that. There is a backstory in here too called Lois and Clark Love at Work, which is kind of corny, I think. But, you know, if you're into the relationship between those two and maybe the dynamic, they're trying to balance like their superhero personas and their real world personas, I guess. I don't know. So there was that in here as well. It didn't really do it for me. But yeah, so I mean, if you're into Action Comics, if you're used to the arc switches and you're used to the creative team switching all the time, this is another example of that. So let me know if you read it down below. All right, From the Ashes, New Beginning, X-Men issue number 1. Jed McKay's on here, but we also have Ryan Stegman on the pencils. We have Meyer on the ink and Garcia on the colors. Now, the inking and the coloring really complements Ryan Stegman's art, I think. There's a lot of cool things in here, so what a great trio it is right there from a visual perspective. You're going to see some of these characters drawn in ways we really haven't seen before. Cyclops definitely has a brand new hairline, which is interesting, and so, you know, we get to love that. And yeah, that was kind of cool. The other characters like Beast and whatnot, they're all really familiar looking, right? There's not a really huge jarring change from that perspective, but you know, it is something that we get to enjoy as we dive into this book. Now, story-wise, we're coming out of the Krakoa era right now, which was very complicated, so many tie-ins, hard to keep up with over time, but like maybe this book does too good of a job of forgetting the past and pushing us forward. There's certainly a lot of dialogue between characters in here referencing the events that we just came out of. But as far as like being new reader friendly, I think it does a good job of doing that. Now, we're introducing a couple members of the team here that we don't really know very well, especially if you haven't been reading a lot of the tie-in X-Men stuff over the past 15 years or so. But there's plenty of familiar faces and familiar roles in this book, like Magneto, and they definitely have their voice inside this book. So they do a decent job for new readers, trying to catch them up and push us forward. So we have this new organization who's playing around with mutants, want to evolve it to the next stage. Wolverine's a key part of all that, and so we're going to be unpacking that going forward in future X-Men books. So not a bad issue. You don't need to know anything about the Krakoa era really to come into here. Just know that everything went to hell. There's a new team right now, and everyone's just trying to rise from the ashes of that big event still. So X-Men issue number 1, not too bad. What'd you think? Dennis Camp in the Ultimates issue number 2. Now, I like the foundational book in the Ultimate Universe because now we're getting getting this broader perspective on the overall event, as instead of like just seeing what Peter Parker's up to, or just seeing what Black Panther's up to, or presumably what Armor is up to, although I haven't pieced that all together yet. So the Ultimates is that foundational book that you should be reading if you are reading those other books. So Ultimates issue number 2, what's going on in here? Well, kind of a jarring opening, to be honest with you. We have our newly formed Ultimates team right here, our Avengers team. We have Cap, we have Iron Man, we have Ant-Man, we have Hank and Janet, and we got Thor, Sif, and Doom lingering around. Thor's in a bad way right now, but they're attacking the White House. Now, why are they attacking the White House? We don't know yet. So we're going to get into that as we go forth. Turns out, presumably, the president of this Ultimate Universe is a guy, it's a kind of a deep cut in the Marvel Universe. I don't want to necessarily give it away unless I accidentally do throughout this this commentary here, but it's someone that like doesn't mean anything to me personally, so you have to do a little bit of research to figure out like who they are and why they're such a big threat. But it was a little bit jarring storytelling wise as to like why the Avengers are running in and attacking this guy at this moment. But there's a cool backstory going on. There's a cool secondary story happening here, and it's Captain America reviewing all the history that he missed while being on ice this entire time. Every major event, every political assassination, every threat to Earth, every political uprising or social uprising, he's watching this all happen in like this museum format or this like slideshow reel. And so as the Avengers or Ultimate Teams are attacking this villain at the White House, we're also seeing panels of Steve Rogers just kind of like dissecting or digesting rather all these different things that have happened throughout America's history since he's been gone. And that was really cool to kind of see that whole thing play out. We also get introduced to a new hero that's been used as like a power source in this Ultimate Universe that this villain has been using too. So that we have a new introduction to a potential new candidate for the Ultimate Team, which has got me really excited to see what that twist looks like in the Ultimate Universe version of this character. So there's some cool things happening in this book. A little bit of a jarring opening, but it worked as the book went on, and it was pretty enjoyable. So let me know if you guys read it down below. Next up is Get Fury issue number 3 from Garth Ennis. Now, there's some bits of the story that I'm really interested in, and I want to see the conclusion of them, but there's other bits that I just really don't care about, and I wish we weren't focused on. So, where are we in issue number 3? Well, Fury was captured in Viet Cong, and he's being held prisoner right now. They're going to start interrogating him, and we sent Frank Castle, the government has, to send Frank Castle to either find him and kill him because he has a lot of secrets, but they're realizing that Frank and Nick have a lot of history together and they might have their own separate plan or whatever in the background. And so all these government guys are really worried that like, what is Frank going to do? Is he actually going to go and kill Nick, or is he going to align with him and they're going to go rogue and all this other stuff? So like that political part's a little bit interesting. I just like to see Frank like running through town trying to be all incognito and like taking people out. And then I like to see Nick Fury in his interrogation scenes and like not giving up a whole lot. And there's really cool stuff happening right there. So like those are the parts that got me interested. I think there's a few more issues of this series. So part of me is like, man, just write it out, but I don't really know. Are you guys reading this one? What are your thoughts down below? Next up from Star Wars, Ahsoka issue number 1, Rodney Barnes on this one, which is why I bought the book, but I was just kind of naive and I did not realize that this is basically going to be a shot-for-shot retelling of the Disney Plus series, and that's exactly what it is right here. I don't really know what Rodney does from a writing perspective besides pick and choose what key phrases or dialogue to put inside the book to keep it a cohesive story, because obviously there's a lot more dialogue in a show. And so that's what we get in here. It's literally a comic book shot-by-shot version of the show. So, you know, if you're into that kind of stuff, you might want to pick this one up. I think they also did this with the Obi-Wan show, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, if you're into that kind of stuff, you can pick this one up. Some first appearances in here, not a bad price point, some killer covers. Ahsoka number 1, maybe not a bad pickup. Let me know if you read it though down below. All right, let's go over to Image Comics. We have Precious Metal issue number 2. We have Darcy Van Polgees, we have Ian Bertram and Matt Hollingsworth on here. Hassan is on the lettering as well. Just an outstanding collaborative team on here. If you have not read Little Bird, I really suggest reading that book because it just puts you in the right mindset for this universe. And I can't imagine reading Precious Metal without having read Little Bird. With that said, you can probably read Precious Metal and then go into Little Bird and your experience would be great as well. So any order of operation you want is fine with me, but I love the perspective I have coming out of Little Bird going into Precious Metal. So keep that in the back of your mind if you're thinking about getting this book. Visually, this book is an absolute masterpiece. There is not a page or a panel that is wasted on here or does not give you some kind of dramatic effect. And I absolutely loved everything that was going on from an art perspective here. Matt's doing an amazing job with the coloring. Hassan is killing it with the letters, just making it all work. And this is one of the best examples of a creative team completely aligned on the goal for the book, right? Like, this is the standard for me. This is the bar that people have to meet when they want to completely align on their vision. This is the example you give them if you want examples of that. From a story perspective, we were learning a lot more about Max. He had a dream that was unlocked by this mysterious child, this mod that everyone seems to be hunting down right now. He's got little pieces of this dream he's unlocking, and we're learning as a reader more and more about his past. And maybe he wasn't such a great guy in the past and he's trying to redeem himself in his actions now, certainly in Little Bird later on. But dude's got a dark past that we're unpacking still. There's a lot of cool ancillary characters we were introduced to in the first issue that have big roles in the second issue as well. This story is all about heartbreak. It's all about beating the odds. It's about uncovering the truth. And it's about learning about the foundation of this world that we see play out inside of Little Bird as well. So there's a lot of great things happening in this book. I really don't want to show you any pages because you have to see it in person. It's definitely one of those spotlight books from a quality perspective and a storytelling perspective and an art perspective. Like, it has everything going for it. So Precious Metal issue number 2, part of the Little Bird universe. Absolute must-reads, in my opinion. Definitely check this issue out. Scotty Young and Jorge Corona on Ain't No Grave, issue number 3. This has been a great series so far. If you're a parent, I highly recommend reading this book because it's showcasing the lengths that a parent will go through to have more time with their family, specifically with their kids. We have a woman here with a really shady bandit-type past. She's diagnosed with a terminal disease, and she's literally taking the fight to death himself. But she basically has to go through the layers of hell to get to death. This is like the casino, like the gambling, the lust, or whatever it might be, layer, and she's up against this just incredibly well-drawn and portrayed character here. She kind of runs the show. She's got this gambling ring right now, and of course our hero relies on some of her experience in her shady past to even the odds a little bit, because she knows she's in a no-win situation, so she has to do whatever she can to win the day. Artistically, the book is absolutely beautiful. Corona is doing amazing work in here. The colorings are bright and vibrant, and I just love everything about this book. Such a spectacular read. Ain't No Grave issue number 3. One of the best series out right now. Check it out. Next up is The Domain, issue number 1. Chip Zdarsky, brand new book. Got the RPG variant right here. This story was pretty good. It's following a couple of kids. They look like they're high schoolers, and they have this little club where they go out at night and look at the stars, and they talk about their life, and they have lots of drama and social issues and whatever it might be. And they're trying to figure life out. But this particular instance, they actually see a comet, so they think, crash onto the Earth, and when they go and investigate, they're actually surprised to find some alien life forms on there, and their first encounter doesn't necessarily go too well, but in the process, they end up taking some of their technology and adopting some of their power sets. And, so we're going to be obviously having some problems with that. Great power, great responsibility things are probably going to come up, and there's inevitably going to be some battling between them as far as like what they should do with this newfound power. And there's other agencies out there that this incident, it's hit their radar as well. So they're going to be responding to it and inevitably hunting these kids down. So not a bad one. If you like those types of stories, I think you might be digging this one. Let me know if you read it though. Next up is Ice Cream Man issue number 40. This is that decompression part 2. The first part was issue number 39. There's a car that had a family in it that actually hits this semi head on, and we went through like their experiences. Everything happens in a matter of seconds, and we actually touch base with every member in the car, talk about their past, their present, and their ideal future. And so that was a cool unpacking. Kind of a downer though, because like even the kids are involved in here, so like I understand it's a pretty heavy subject. This is the semi's perspective. We have 2 different drivers in here, and the same thing happens. We completely unpack and dissect the 2 different drivers. They have very different personalities, come from different ways of life, and they have different current situations that they're dealing with. And it's another great issue that just like dives into the psyche of these 2 random people that just so happen to be involved in this car accident with the family. The driver is actually submitting things to like the New Yorker, these different pieces, and one of them got accepted. And towards the end of this book, you actually get to read what that piece is, and it retells this entire story again, but has a positive spin on it. So you're watching all this carnage and mayhem unfold, but then you get this 2 pages of writing from this New Yorker fake piece, and you get to see what the opposite of this accident would look like. And that was awesome, I thought. So it was really good exploration of character, exploration about the character's past, their present mind state, what they had as far as hopes and dreams. And then we get this like other view of it as well towards the end. So really remarkable issue. And I just love how they play with storytelling. It's just really cool. He's got a lot of great plans coming up in the future too, with these one-page horror stories. So make sure Ice Cream Man's on your list. It's one of the best comics ever created. Falling in Love on the Path to Hell, issue number 2. We have Gary Duggan on here. I love the characters that we introduce inside of here. We have this girl who comes from a samurai background. She was part of this uprising when this oppression was hitting her land. We have this cowboy who was a bounty hunter who was just doing his job, but they were both mortally wounded in their own timelines, and they got brought together to this savage land, and now they're like learning the ropes from this one guy right now who's kind of like their leader in a way. What's great about this issue is we are learning as a reader through their eyes what this environment is. Like, what are the rules here? They have to stay here. There's no escaping this place. They barely know how they got there, what happened in their previous life. And now they're up against all these like impossible monsters, and they're teaming up with all these different people like them throughout time, throughout culture, and they're all teaming up to beat the odds to survive that next day. So this issue has a lot of explaining in it, but not in a boring way. And it's got a ton of action towards the back. And it's just got me really pumped to see where the story goes. So great storytelling in here, great art, interesting characters. Can't wait to see what else is happening in Falling in Love on the Path to Hell. Make sure to check it out. Issue 2's out now. Transformers issue number 10, Daniel Warren Johnson, Jorge Corona, and Mike Spicer. Man, we get some Shockwave stuff in here. We see what his plan is for the world, how to get all of his energy back, how to build up his ranks again. That's really showcased inside of this book, and it's leading to some pretty dramatic scenes inside of here, which were just like the takeaway for the entire issue for me. We got some more Autobots. We got some people that are playing catch up right now. We have some new faces. We have some more human interactions that we have come to know from this series, and we get some cool, just quiet scenes that are interrupted or spliced in with some pretty dramatic elements as well. So I just love how they're continuing to play with storytelling, and they're continuing to like keep even the seemingly mundane conversations really interesting and engaging. So they're doing a great job of that. Art-wise, incredible. So like, don't worry about that at all. The Daniel Warren Johnson switch to Corona, it's not even noticeable, so don't worry about that. The story continues to be dramatic, exciting, and something that I just never thought I'd be really interested in. So props to the team right there. But yeah, like I said, some pretty dramatic moments in here. We have new leadership on the Decepticons, and he's taking full advantage of like the power that's been bestowed upon him, and he's got some pretty dramatic plans that we're unpacking. So Transformers issue number 10 continues to be amazing. Let me know if you're reading it. Jeff Johns, Gary Frank, Brad Anderson, Geiger issue number 4, the flagship title in the Ghost Machine universe, continues to be my favorite book in this series. We have our Nuclear Knight and Geiger on the road right now. Of course, they have the three-headed hound with them as well, who was recently kidnapped by this villain we're tracking at the moment, but we learn a little bit more about that inside of here. The Nuclear Knight, he was going to do something nice for Geiger, at least he thought it was, but in the process, he gets their pup abducted, and this issue here is all about getting him back and confronting the radiated organ harvesters out there. So we get some pretty awesome scenes with Geiger just taking on the masses right here, and we get a more proper introduction to the villain or the person we're hunting down right now who's responsible for taking the hound. We get some pretty shocking moments. Some stuff happens to Geiger and Nuclear Knight. We don't quite know the outcome. We don't know how they're going to fare after this battle with this new villain right here. So we're going to have a lot to go through in the next coming issues, and again, flagship title, one of my favorite books out there. Make sure to check out Geiger. It's great. IDW has a one-shot for TMNT, celebrating the 40 years of TMNT. $12 price point. You're going to have to really put that in consideration when you see what's inside the book. Now, we have an Eastman and Laird cover. We'll start right there. Is that cool? Yes. Is it rare? Yes, it is. But we also have 4 interior pages, each showcasing a different turtle, and there's an Edgar Allan Poe poem overlaid on there instead of a story, and it wraps up in 4 pages. After that, we have a lot of different creators that presumably have touched TMNT over the years, and lots of different backstories. It's an oversized issue with many different stories in there. But if you came just for the Eastman and Laird stuff, you're going to get a cover in 4 pages. Is that awesome? Sure, that's awesome. But it's a $12 price point, and there's a lot of other just onesie-twosie kind of stories after that with no real impact. You know, it plays true to the characters and things like that, and it showcases a wide variety of villains, even some cameos with Eastman and Laird in the background, things like that, some process stuff. So, I mean, like, that was fun. So if you're really into Turtles, everything Turtles, you're going to love this one. If you're into the Mirage stuff and you're just hanging out because you've read Last Ronin recently and you want to get that old school vibe, you might like some of the back stuff, but you're probably going to only appreciate the first 5 pages. Now, with that said, $12, I don't know, guys. That's up to you. Let me know if you read it down below. Zach Kaplan on a book I never thought would come out, Kill All Immortals issue number 1. I think this book has been on the FOC list every single week for the past 6 months, it feels like. we finally get it right here. And was it worth it? Well, we have a family here who's extremely connected and basically runs the entire world and forces other CEOs to make whatever decisions they need to make. And they're essentially gods, and they've been living forever. So they use their influence where they can. And if that doesn't work, the result is just like cutting people's heads off and threatening the other people that are still left alive. This book focuses on the daughter of like the king of these people, and she's trying to live her own life. She's trying to be more charitable than her family has been. She's in a somewhat relationship with this reporter or this journalist. They were attacked, and so she decides to go back home to seek refuge with her family, bringing him along with her. And so, she thinks they're going to be safe right there because of how powerful her family is, and she has a lot of secrets that we reveal towards the end as well. So this story basically turns into a family with that kind of power and that kind of like political oversight, reacting to like this journalist outsider coming into their family, essentially. And, there's lots of drama and there's lots of issues with all of that. And we learn a little bit more about the family and how ruthless they are in the process. So Kill All Immortals, not a bad issue. Let me know if you read it down below. All right, next up from Dark Horse is Dawn Runner issue number 4 from Ram V and Evan Cagle. We are still continuing this epic kaiju fight that we saw in the previous issue. Dawn Runner is just getting its ass kicked right now. And we're also dealing with this Neuralink kind of thing happening right now between the pilot of Dawn Runner and like the AI or the conscience or the computer of Dawn Runner, which is actually based on some human integrated technology that we've never seen before. That's why this Dawn Runner is able to do what it can do and react as fast as it can. So we're still playing with this character from the past and his experience with his kids and trying to escape this war zone when like the portal first opened up and the different kaijus fell down. So we're still trying to deal with that. Our main protagonist is trying to like shepherd him into the truth, really, that like he lost all of his kids in the past and he was the lone survivor, and something happened with him in the future to help make the present day Dawn Runner be what it is. I think that's where we're headed in this one right here. It's really trippy. There's lots of overlay of the present day onto his previous experience. They're speaking telepathically because he's part of the Dawn Runner machine and she's the pilot in there, and they're just linked by their consciousness. She's also having to deal with getting full control of her own suit because she's being attacked by this big kaiju. So we're trying to balance all that stuff right now. So that's been pretty cool. But I will say they're trying to accomplish a lot of things visually in here that might not necessarily be working in a comic format. I think as like an anime, this would be really, really cool because you can see the motion between the panels, which really would help, I think, because there's a lot of things happening in here that just get lost in obscurity because all you see is this giant kaiju and this Dawn Runner machine fighting. And so you're having to piece together the movement between the panels, even though they're trying to establish that. So there's a lot of things visually that are still hurting the book, even though what's there is beautiful from like a comic perspective. I think as like an anime, this would be really cool. So let me know if you're reading this one down below. All right, we're going to wrap it up with Titan Comics Savage Sword of Conan issue number 3. Conan, one of the best bangs for your buck right now in comics. Conan the Barbarian just finished its 3rd arc and it's incredible. You can check that one out in trade. Highly recommend that. It's all connected, but then we also have Savage Sword of Conan issue number 3. They're all separate stories besides a Solomon Kane connected story in the back, which I believe we just wrapped up inside of this one. So you can really jump into any Savage Sword and pick it up from there, but I recommend getting number 1 and number 2 for sure coming into here. Conan's coming out of some big adventure, maybe the ones from issue number 2. He's on his horse. He's in some desolate place. He's hungry. He's starving. He needs to sleep, and he comes across this little tavern called the Hungry Claw. And, it's not assuming, but of course it's filled with all these big brooding guys who are really pissed that he's there, and he's wanting a bed, and he's wanting a meal, and he's wanting some mead, and things like that. And of course, the locals don't take kindly to him being in there, and we inevitably have this great big scene where the lights get turned out, and then he starts this epic brawl with whoever these people are. But he's noticed that he's bitten in here, and actually this whole town, this whole bar was full of these lichens or werewolves or whatever, and now he's infected with that curse, and the only way to get rid of it is to hunt down the king of all the werewolves, of course, right? And so there's these epic montages of him just ripping different werewolves apart, either in human form or in werewolf form. So it's epic, it's awesome, and we get to see the showdown, albeit brief, between him and like the king of the werewolves in here. So it's just another epic Conan book that I really recommend picking up. Magazine size, black and white art, really spectacular stuff. The story ends on a little bit of humor as well as Conan goes to the next story and goes to the next bar and sees what he sees inside of there. Like I said, the whole Solomon Kane storyline apparently ends right here, so that was pretty satisfying, so that was a cool thing. There's also a lot of previews to other books that are coming out in the near future. We have Conan Battle of the Black Stone, and we have Conan Conan lure of the pit creature, and we have a cool little one-pager from Jim Zub and Rob De La Torre as well. So lots of interesting things coming to Conan very, very soon. If you have not been on the Conan train, I really recommend picking up Savage Sword and Conan the Barbarian. They've both been amazing and well worth the price point, so let me know if you're reading it down below. Well guys, that's all I read this week. I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know down below what you read and what your favorite books of the week were. While you're down there, like, subscribe, share, hit the bell notification to be alerted whenever I put out new videos. Thank you again for watching. We'll see you in the comments.